something that is transferable. So from the get-go, the way I studied and the way I looked at classes was always with that so transferability, and can I derive some value out of this in the long run? Then I would focus more attention and give it more serious time than stuff that I knew. I mean, again, I don't want to be personal, but you know, history, for example, for me was a class I had to take, but it didn't have, for me specifically, in the economics world, a very big application. But then I remember the classes that I took from art, and the art conversations were very much something I knew from movies, and in general in the business world were actually big. So I really focused on art, although art wouldn't be something that an economics major would think is important. So in other words, I kind of flipped the model and made it my own. And I studied with that in mind. Things that help me in my life are mentors. And I can't, I wouldn't be fair to not mention that this is literally what got me through this crazy life and still is getting me through. I mean, literally, I was on a call with my mentor half an hour ago. The only thing that's changing is the conversations I'm having, right? In the beginning, it was, where do I go to my first internship? Then it becomes, where do I go for a job? Should I change a job? Now it's, how do I negotiate this deal? Or if a deal is going bad, what are the 3 steps you would do to make this deal go back on track? So regardless of your stage in your life, that is something I highly recommend. And the other thing I wanted to tell everybody here is to keep reading. I mean, keep reading, keep learning. I would say, even my mother recently made a comment, you didn't stop. I think she wasn't making a compliment here because she's frustrated, but I'm telling you guys, it's worth to keep learning, especially nowadays. You see, even from William and Jared, we change, we evolve. Even our first speaker today, we all have changed lives. You can't change a life without getting new skills or getting interested in new things. And that means reading and learning. So don't think you're done. This is just the beginning. If you want to be successful in life and in your careers, you're going to have to create a mentality and system for ongoing continuous learning and make it just a habit so it doesn't annoy you. And I will stop at that. I think I probably had, for COVID-19, I would say every industry would be valid and relevant. You just need to find a new angle. The context is changing, but life keeps going. So and also differentiate between short-term and long-term things. I had the privilege to be in a bank in 2008. So I can tell you, we thought the world is ending. The banks are still around. Similar jobs are still around. So I'm not saying COVID is as the crisis in '08, but there are moments in our life cycle where things feel a little more grave. And over time, the curve will flatten, but recognize that the context will change. Done.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. So that's already really great pieces of advice to our students so far. We want to dive into our poll next. And so for students, everyone listen up. This is my one quick moment. So the joys of working from home.
Yeah.
That was my son asking me to tie a karate thing around him. Yes, so let me explain the polling. So what we did is we created a series of quick polls. We're going to take these polls very quickly. And we're going to ask so it's for our students. And we're going to ask our panelists to join in as well. And the first one, I'm going to launch the first one. And everyone is going to take the poll and write their answers on a separate piece of paper. And let's go. You should see it now. Okay, so we'll give you a quick moment to just go through and pick your answer.
Do you want us to answer on here as well?
Yes, yes, we want the panelists to answer as well. And note if your answers change from what you have written down. So the first question is, what is the #1 quality that successful applicants share? Okay, so those were the results for that poll, and now we're going to ask our panelists. We asked our panelists to give us their three, 1, 2, 3. We're going to start with their third quality in a candidate that sort of tells them that this candidate will be a successful one. What is in third place for each of you? Let's start with, I see Liliana on the screen, so let's start with you.
Do you see
Liliana
it?
says communication skills, oral and written, is in third place for her when it comes to knowing a successful candidate. Good, thank you. Margaret? Margaret says honesty is number 3. So honesty comes in the number 3 position when we're talking about what a successful candidate is. William?
Personality, relatability.
Personality, relatability is number 3 for William. So what a successful candidate looks like for him. And finally, Jared. Punctuality. Punctuality is in number 3 position for Jared. So I'm just asking all of our students to really take a look. So we're doing this so that you can see across the board the things that are important to employers, hiring managers. And next we're going to go to number 2. What is the second most important thing to each of you when it comes to knowing what a successful candidate looks like? Starting with William, I see you on the screen.
Speak towards skill set. Someone that can easily speak to their skill set.
Yes, someone who can speak towards their skill set. Good. Margaret, for you, what is the second most important thing in a successful candidate or applicant? Being prepared. So that sounds similar to speaking towards skill set, being prepared for the interview, doing your research. Good. Jared, you're up next for a second. Well researched, prepared. So overall, that seems to be taking the number 2 spot. Good. And Liliana? Oh, knowledge about organization. Great. Knowledge about organization. So I feel for the most part, you've all put the same thing, like well researched with all knowledge about the organization as well. Good. It will be interesting to see what's in the number 1 spot. What's in the number 1 spot for each of you in terms of what a successful applicant looks like. Let's start with William. I see you. Number 1 spot is passion and drive for a company or client. Great, thank you. Margaret. Professionalism. Number 1 for a successful candidate is professionalism. And for Jared, it is speak to their experience. So someone who's able to speak to their experience. And finally, Liliana, you're not on my passion for the job. So passion for the job really does stand out above most of the others that we've seen. It's in the number 1 position. So please take note of that, because I'm sure you might have thought that it might have been something else. And so that really is beginning to stand out. Good. All right, so this is our second poll, and now I'm officially poll savvy. You have 1 minute to take this. And the question is, what is the number 1 quality of successful employees? Now, please note with the difference between applicants and employees, there can be similar expectations, but they can be very different as well once you become an employee of the organization. 2 seconds left. Okay, let's share the results now. So what is the number 1 quality of successful employees? And the number 1 quality comes in as being proactive. Proactive. Oh, wait, not true, not true, not true. Number 1 should be being able to read polling results. So the number 1 quality is being able to adapt to changing business needs and cultures by an overwhelming 46%. Okay, we'll stop sharing and then ask our panelists to talk about that. Okay. So let's start with your number 3 in successful employees. How you know, so by this time they're already onboarded. And a lot of people think that, okay, once you're onboarded, the work is kind of over, right? So I got the job, this is it, I'm living the sweet life. But as someone that oversees employees, what do you think are some qualities that really make an employee stand out? Number 3 position, we'll move through a little faster this time. Let's start with William. I see you on the screen. Someone who's willing to continue to learn. Great, thank you. So in the number 3 position, someone who's willing to continue to learn. Liliana, let's go. Professionalism, number 3, successful employee, professionalism. So someone who maintains that even after the application process. Next, we have Jared. Jared has someone who is punctual. So even after you've gotten the job, it is important to remain punctual. And finally, Margaret, being on time, being punctual. So thank you. What is in your second positions, please? Willingness to teach. All right, so all up at the same time. Willingness to teach from William. Jared says adaptable. Margaret, is that you? Margaret says eager to learn. And Liliana says problem solving. So I hope you're taking notes. A lot of this revolves around the same areas, so please write down the key areas that you're hearing from our panelists. And finally, the number 1 quality in a success, how do you know an employee is a successful one? Number 1 answer is, William says, be open to feedback. Yes, that can be tough. Number 1 from Liliana is being proactive. Yes. Let's see, I have to change screens. Number 1 from Margaret is being a team player. And Jared also says being proactive. So please take note of that, everyone. Okay, good. Thank you so much for that. Next up, we'll have our 3rd poll, and we have just 2 more, and we'll launch it immediately. This poll is, what do you think is an employer's biggest pet peeve with the applicants? And we're launching it. You have 1 minute. Once again, so the question was, what do you think is an employer's biggest pet peeve with applicants? This was a close call here. The number 1 that stood out is not being able to speak to your resume, which got 27%, which was closely followed by lack of company research at 23%, and finally, exaggerated skill set at 23%. Thank you, everyone. We're going to stop sharing and go straight to our panelists. Let's start with, okay, what's in your number 3 position as a pet peeve? William, I see not prepared for interview. Jared says, did not do research, same. Margaret says sloppy or stained clothing. And Liliana says punctuality, not being on time as your number 3 most pet peeve. Okay, good. What is your number 2? Not having, this is interesting because you don't often think of this one. William says not having follow-up questions. Liliana? No story, just a list of qualifications. Yes. No story, just a list of qualifications. So you're expected to have a story behind what those qualifications that you have. Like, what does it mean? We also, second, we have from Margaret, lateness is your second biggest pet peeve. And Jared have doesn't check email and doesn't follow up in second position. Good. And so number 1, what is your biggest pet peeve? All goes up at the same time. William says not being themselves. Margaret says texting after or before the interview. Jared says late to the interview. And Liliana says no research done. Good. Thank you. Thank you. I hope we're absorbing everything and really taking it in. This is like a gift that I feel like we're getting in this moment from our panelists. So thank you. All right, final poll. This is it. And it's, so the first one is always applicant and the second one is employee. So you know that what is expected of you in different stages. The final question is, what do you think is an employee's biggest pet peeve with the poorly performing employee? We're launching it now. 1 minute. Oh, that came very quickly. I think everybody, we have 15 seconds left. Okay, ending the poll. Okay, so now we're going to share the results. The question once again was, what do you think is an employer's biggest pet peeve with a poorly performing employee? The one that won out by a hair was inability to complete tasks in a timely manner. And a close second was lack of motivation. Great. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Okay. Okay, panelists, can you now share with me now, this is for the employee, what is your third biggest pet peeve for an employee, poorly performing? Not taking notes, not being present during trainings is William. Continued lateness from Margaret. Late to work from Jared. I'm seeing a theme here. And punctuality from Liliana. Across the board, it was a sweep in third position. In second position, what do we have for each candidate in terms of pet peeve? Not asking questions from William. Put patience before, you need to have patience before asking for a promotion from Liliana. No motivation from Margaret Murphy, and doesn't ask questions. So that came up twice, doesn't ask questions. And biggest pet peeve from our employers, in what is it? Let's go. Biggest pet peeve of your employees are being too timid. Is that William? Yes. Inability to adapt from Margaret. Continually on the phone from Jared, and taking our relationship as a set of transactions. I'll do this, what will I get? Number one pet peeve from employers. Thank you, each of you, for taking the time to do that. That was actually a lot of fun on my part. I hope it was, just to see it in that manner. I hope everyone has taken down notes. And now we're going to open it up to questions from our students. We're going to dive right in. And Gabby Spinelli, you can unmute yourself, and Gabby will field this portion of the webinar.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions from some students. First two questions from Zoe is, what do you think are the secrets behind getting to where you've gotten to? And also, what is your advice for anyone taking a gap year before going to graduate school?
I can take that. I took more than a gap year. I took more years. I don't think that the gap between undergrad and grad matters, specifically depending on your field. In my case, I went for an MBA in NYU, and I took 3, 4, almost 5. Actually, I went in 8, so 3-year gap. There is no rhyme or reason in terms of yeah, there is no one path. I think you're going to hear that from all of us. It really is what you need in the moment. And at my moment, that was the moment where I needed that next set of qualifications. Getting another degree doesn't mean you're going to get a new job. And don't do it for that reason, because you will not get the best out of the school. Go back to school for the skills and the experience, not necessarily because you're aiming at a specific job. That being said, I did go back for my MBA after one of my dream jobs was given to somebody else. And then I went to see what he had and I didn't, and he had an MBA. So, you know, there is a motivation, but don't keep it as your sole reason to go back. And what got me where I am is really perseverance and continuous optimism. And I think that comes from my immigrant background. If you are immigrants out there, there's no excuse. Either you or your parents have gone through rough times, so just feed off of that. And if you're not, still find that perseverance in you, because being steady state and continuing chugging along on what you want is what will get you there, and not the fast express train.
I'd like to add on to that. I completely agree with what Liliana is saying. Especially for grad school, I took 3 years in between undergraduate and graduate school. And for me, it was really about, well, for one, graduate school is very expensive, and it's a big time commitment. And so if you're going to go, I would really say make sure you're going, you take time to know why you're going and what school you're going to go to, and know that it's going to be for whatever you need. Maybe it's going to be the next step to get into your career field, or because you're interested in that topic, whatever it may be. But sometimes I see people going to graduate school because it's just a step that they can take after undergraduate, and they end up going there for 2 years, not knowing what's going to happen afterwards, finding a job they could have gotten if they had applied after their undergraduate degree. And so it's not something that you should go to if you're, well, rather the cost is not something that you should put on yourself if it's not worth it. So really just take time to think about what that's for. And if you need to take 3 years, if you need to take 5 years for that, it's perfectly fine. Just do whatever's best for you in that situation until you understand what you need graduate school for. But the first part of the question, I think something that's really helped me is really being open to everything, and recognizing that I can learn from any kind of a job experience or just experience in life. So when you may not get that first job that you want, that you've been looking for and that you've really set out for, if you get another position, be open to how that can affect you and help affect your professional career, and see what skills you can gain from it, because you can most likely transfer those skills into any other job that you want. It's really just about how you view it and where you want to take it.
Yeah, I'll just add some. Is that okay? Yeah, no to today that the jobs market, I've seen the job market evolve over 30 years. When I first started, people were using a typewriter and I was sending the resumes to my recruiters in the mail, right? Or on a bike messenger. If you would have told me that we could be doing this, I would have thought that you were from another planet, that we could interview people on the phone, right? The jobs that are going to be around next year in response to all of this. We have a whole new industry coming in Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn's mad. They're mad and they're going to do something about it. So the skills that you have from school, take the knowledge and the techniques, because you might not even know what job you wind up in a few years. But if you have the ability to adapt and learn how to, I agree with Liliana. Reading has kept me in the game without college. One of the reasons that I went back to college is I want to eventually sit on corporate boards and get paid for what I do. So I'd like to get my credentials. I certainly have the experience. I've done a lot of work for a nonprofit boards, which I love, but the amount of women that are not on corporate boards, that's where I want to be. So to your point, Jared, I figured out, how am I going to get there? What are the credentials of the people who are on the boards that I want to be on? And let me go back to St. Francis and take my degree in social entrepreneurism, because really what we're coming out of now, that this is going to be social transformation. So who knew that that's what I would use it for, but I did it because I was interested in it, and now I can find it to apply it to different like nonprofits that I might be interested in. Sorry, William.
No, not a problem. All I want to say is I think ultimately how I got to where I'm at and what I think people should take into consideration is what makes you happy. What's going to keep you passionate? What's going to drive you? I will even say I have conversations with employees now. and I'm really about employee engagement and keeping people really excited about the job. But you sometimes are going to get a job and it's not going to be the right fit for you. It's okay. It's what I think what helps is the realization that you realize it's not the right job for you. And sometimes it could be the company you always wanted, but at the end of the day, it's not what's happy. So you have to make sure like you're making yourself aware, like this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I hoped for. So let me go find what's going to drive me, what's going to keep me excited. Because if you're in a job that's not doing that, it's not the right fit for you. It's all about, at the end of the day, what's making you happy, in my opinion.
Oh my God, William, this is music to my ears. Thank you for bringing that up. And I kind of almost like beat myself. Why didn't I say that? This is exactly what I keep doing, guys. And that's connected to that motivation that we kept telling you. It's going to show in your passion. It's going to show in your motivation. But the source of the problem is what William is talking about. So Naomi is on this call. She knows my heart broke when I went on Wall Street and it wasn't what I wanted. I suffered like physically because that's what I thought I want for 10 years. And it's a really hard pivot, but only because I made it, now I'm doing something that makes me completely happy. So you have to follow your heart. You have to. Don't compromise on that.
Okay, thank you. Next question is actually for Liliana. You mentioned you are foreign. I understand you are an international student. Is that right? If this is the case, could you share the challenges you had when trying to get hired while on OPT or a working visa? What advice would you give to international students looking to get sponsored after OPT?
Hi, yes, all your assumptions are correct. I did go through the OPT and the H-1B and the second H-1B and the whole shenanigans. So the times changed, okay? So the first thing I would give you is the immigration policy today is very, very different from 2003, in 2004 when I was dealing with this. But I would say for me, relationships is what will get you there. So just find the people that you connect with, create relationships with people here that you love, that love you. And when the time comes, these are the people that will give you the golden signature that you need. I mean, my story is quite wild. I mean, I actually ended up in St. Francis because my manager from the Ripley's Museum, believe it or not, in Atlantic City, co-signed to cover for my tuition. A person who I worked for only for a summer and you guys know what that means. He opened his books for people to see. That was based on a relationship I did. I had another person who knew me for 15 years who signed, but that was not enough. So it is doable to find people here who connect with you and care for you. Back in the day when we had a couple of brothers walking in St. Francis College halls, they helped us a lot. I don't know if there is such a brother these days. I know mine passed away, unfortunately, but they specifically care about us. And I've noticed that the Brotherhood is really, really there in spirit for all kinds of children and students. You can't really, I mean, I would say, guys, you can't really be too optimistic either, okay? So cut your losses. If you see it's not happening, don't wait too long. I would say that there's nothing worse than being illegal, nothing worse than waiting too long. Be honest about the timeline. And if it doesn't work, it's not the worst thing to find another alternative, go in another country or whatever, but that's much better than staying illegal. So my advice is, even if it hurts, make the hard choices. Oh, by the way, also reach out if you want. Antonella will give you my email. I can talk to you separately as well.
Yes. So I know we have a lot more questions, but we're rapidly approaching our end time, our 1:30 end time. Am I mute? Only muted. Okay. And so we want to take all of your questions and we will forward them to our panelists and they can give you those answers and we will forward them to you as a group. So each of the questions that you have, we'll make sure that our panelists are able to answer it and we will forward those responses to you as a group as well. We want to stick to our timeline. One of the things I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for coming on, students, and especially our panelists for giving of your time. It has been invaluable. Just since we have learned so much in such a short period of time. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and Xavier, also, I'm happy to look at anyone's resume to make corrections, to tell you what to do with it. Not a problem. Give
Yeah.
advice, whatever, on individual careers if you are interested.
Our students here, one of the big things we want you to know from this is that this is your opportunity to build community. Now, I know, so if you heard Liliana and you heard our other panelists today say that you need to keep in touch with your mentors, you need to find mentors, and each of our panelists here can provide that opportunity to share what they know with you. They're open, willing, and ready. So please take advantage of that. So please reach out to them with your questions and just see how they can guide you on your path. Know that they've become an additional resource for you now as a result of this, this Zoominar. We wanted to ask one parting question for all of our panelists. What advice would you give yourself? Very brief, like what advice? What's one thing you would give to your younger self about the world of work? Like if you could talk to your younger self now about where you would be in the future. Because I know we start out from a place of maybe like fear, reticence. What advice would you give your younger self?
I wouldn't have waited 25 years to go back to college.
Great. Don't wait 25 years to go back to college. William.
Just be open to opportunities.
Be open to opportunities. Got it. Yep. It's not a straight path. Be open. Liliana.
I actually want to second that. I was very much on the plan. I'm very big on planning. And now going back, I see how, you know, the path is not linear. And when I go back, I see how every curve I saw ended up being for a reason and helping me today. But at the time, I felt like that was a failure. So just embrace the curves.
Yes. Yes. Good. And finally, Jared.
I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'd also say it's okay to make mistakes, but own up to them when they happen and make sure you figure out how you prevent them in the future.
Yes, got it. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're gonna have, because I know we had a lot more questions, and we're gonna even see if we can post some of those questions and responses online as well. I wanted to, it's already 2 minutes over, so I'll just say goodbye. Thank you again, and let's keep growing our community together. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.